notes there.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the Voice of Wisdom. With over 60 years of experience as an investment banker, entrepreneur, investment analyst, economist, and venture capitalist, Morty Davis is Wall Street and capitalism personified. The over 400 companies for which he has raised more than $3 billion over the years have created a countless number of jobs and exciting new products. Through the Voice of Wisdom, Mr. Davis explores, analyzes, and debates the most topical, political, economic, and social issues facing our world today. Joining Mr. Davis today for a discussion on crime and punishment is Rabbi David Seidemann. And now, Mr. Davis and Rabbi Seidemann.
Welcome back. It's great to be with you again, my cherished listeners and partners in this podcast. I look forward eagerly to be with you every Wednesday, 6:30 to 7:30. And I'm especially excited to have Rabbi David Seidemann as a guest. He's really very special, very terrific. We had to bail him out to attend this this podcast because the subject is bailing out people that violate the crimes, that perpetrate crimes. I'm just kidding. He got out without bail. Anyway, why don't you introduce your feeling about this subject, and then we'll go on to the differences, if we have any, about our views on this subject.
Well, I would say the following. Many years ago, I served, when I first became a lawyer, I served as the substitute, one of the municipal prosecutors in a village, a town in New Jersey. And this was way before bail reform was even on the horizon. This goes back to the 1980s. And I'm telling you that I was on a first-name basis with more than half of these criminals, because I saw the same guys. I saw them every few weeks. And this was before, there was one guy, I don't want to say his last name, but his first name was George. And we actually became friends because I saw this guy every few weeks. Now they were, minor drug possessions, but the bottom line is that I learned something very important back then. People dedicate, and I don't necessarily mean that in a good way, they dedicate their life to a certain type of behavior. It's not too often that you have a guy who wakes up one day and says, you know what, today I'm going to become a bank robber. Today I'm going to become a mugger. Today I'm going to become a drug dealer. They were raised a certain way.
Is becoming a mugger
a mugger?
Crime?
A mugger.
Oh,
not a mother. Not a mother. A mugger. An arsonist. An arsonist. There's a lifestyle that brings them to that, and that lifestyle is not changed by a slap on the wrist, by a $500 fine, which they can't afford anyway, so they pay it out $5, $1 a year for 500 years. Mm-hmm. It's not changed. If it's changed, it's changed by a lengthy stay in incarceration. And that's a completely separate discussion we could have, and that is what type of rehabilitation takes place in jail, and how much of what goes on in jail is just punitive. And that's a completely different conversation. But in the year 2020, when bail reform really took hold in New York, that's when we saw what I saw in the 1980s really come to fruition. 43% of people that were arrested and let go released under the new cash bail, 43% of them were rearrested before their court date on the initial charge. It used to be, and then I'll give you the floor. And then later on we can talk about the just specific, horrific cases. I'm looking at 5 or 6 cases right here that just horrific in nature. But it used to be that judges were given discretion. The bail reform took away discretion. Now that's in New York.
What year did the bail reform occur?
2020. January.
Just recently.
Yeah. Bail reform. It hit the legislature, I believe, in 2019.
And what did the law say?
What the law said that there's a whole new category of crimes which judges no longer have discretion. I have them printed out here. It's over 150 different crimes including using a minor to commit drug offenses, including hate crimes. I mean, under the new bail reform law, you could walk up to somebody, punch them in the face, break their nose, but if they don't have lifelong lasting injuries, that is either a misdemeanor or considered, believe it or not, a nonviolent felony. No bail. But the interesting thing is that judges in New York no longer have discretion, and they have to let them.
Just New York, or
no? There's other states, but New York is the when I say the toughest one, it's the most liberal. California, Illinois, and there's one other state that comes to mind. It just escapes my mind at the moment, but they have also no cash bail, but there is some discretion. But the point that the judges have. But the biggest change in New York was that under the old law, a judge had discretion to look at the seriousness of the crime in determining whether bail should be imposed. And now they don't look at seriousness of the crime. They look at one factor.
They can insist.
They look at one factor. What is the likelihood that the person will return for the next court date? And guess what they were giving as incentive to return to the court date? Mets and Yankee tickets.
That's probably the right thing.
That's the problem.
That's the right thing, because at least that motivates them.
Maybe last year the way the Mets were playing, but the year before that, I wouldn't show up if you gave me a Met ticket. Okay, but that's the problem. 43%, and there was a study. There was a completely skewed study by some Democrats in the Assembly that said it was 2%. But you'll read the article, you'll do the research.
What do you mean 2%?
That only 2% of the people that were given a free pass were rearrested. The real number is 43%.
How do they have such a great discrepancy?
Well, they had such a great discrepancy.
Between 2% to 43%.
Because the Senate Majority Leader, Andrea Stewart Cousins, at the time, decided to skew the results and said it was 2%. But when you do the numbers, we'll go through it. New York City, between July 1st, 2020 and June 30th, 2021, 26,535 people were arrested for a felony. 69% of them had prior convictions or pending cases. 4,000 were released on non-monetary. And of those 4,000 that were released, 1,700 or 43% were rearrested. What did the 2%ers view the numbers? They looked at the total people, including those that were given bail. Well, of course they weren't rearrested, they were in jail. Mm-hmm. So it's the people that were let free. So we're talking, there was just a case a few weeks ago, and more than a few weeks ago, the end of last year, where this Orthodox accountant in Manhattan was beaten to a pulp by a group of thugs.
You think it was because he was an accountant?
I would imagine he was probably their accountant and didn't get them the refund they wanted. So no cash bail. And then when it came time for their sentencing, we're already up to the sentencing. The main perpetrator, or one of the main perpetrators, was looking at 7 to 10 years in jail, and Alvin Bragg, the district attorney in Manhattan, gave him 6 months or 7 months probation. So we have two problems. We have the fact that they're back on the street. And so, if I can get back on the street, so why not grab a guy's wallet and bop him over the head? I'm back on the street. And even if I do show up to my court appearance and am sentenced, what am I sentenced to? I'm sentenced to either probation or 6 months where I'm going to get warm weather, nice set of clothing, free food, a gym, and then I'll come back out. But I think that one of the most egregious cases was a man who was facing felony arson charges. And he was released, no bail, and within weeks.
Well, they were afraid he's going to burn down
the jail,
the prison, right?
Right. Well, within weeks, he murdered a mother and her daughter.
Oh my God!
He murdered a mother and a daughter. There was somebody else who was arrested. He was let go, and he was rearrested 3 times within 36 hours. And another one assaulted a police officer with a stolen police car on the RFK bridge, and he was let go, released without bail. He was arrested on third-degree grand larceny and third-degree criminal possession of stolen property, and released without bail. And then within a few weeks, he stole a car and assaulted a police officer.
David, let me comment on
I'm sorry
some
for
of what you
talking so
said.
much.
No, it's very interesting and very on point. But there was good news. First of all, the thing that you said just near the end was we have two problems. We have 2 problems. That's the best news I've had in years. We have 2 problems. The second thing I want to tell you, of 40% to 43% go back. 43% wind up back in prison.
Well, I don't know if they wind up back in prison. They wind up rearrested. That's the problem. I don't know if they're winding back in prison.
It's because a lot of them want to get back in prison.
Yeah.
Because they once asked the guy, why does he keep coming back? He got arrested about 30 times, not for major crimes. And he says because he doesn't want to be out, because all his friends are in there, because he got fed, because he had medical care. So why would he want to be out when he was out? He was laying on the street.
That's the question. What do they do when they're out? And it's interesting. It's interesting because one of the philosophies behind bail reform, there was a few, but here's 2 of them or 3 of them. One was that you're innocent until proven guilty. Okay, so now let's do a statistical study and see the people that were arrested for violent crimes. Was it really, really a question of whether they did the crime or not? If the arrow seems to be pointing that they did the crime and it was violent and there's really probable cause to hold them, then maybe for the safety of society they do belong in jail. But the other reason, 2 other reasons, is the disproportionate people of the society that were being arrested were African Americans. And they don't have as high-paying jobs as white Americans. This was the argument. And therefore, they can't afford bail in the same way that a white person can. Well, that's really looking at it backwards. Because instead of looking at it, can this segment of the population make bail? Let's look at it. What segment of the population is committing the crime? And we know it. The African Americans are 13% of the population, but they're committing, 70-80% of the violent crime.
50% of the prison population is
African American. Now, it could be that some of them are not getting proper defenses, and you always see these stories you hear later of people that have been incarcerated for 20 years and it turns out they're innocent. And believe me, if I could afford to do that for a living, I would work for the Project Innocence program. If I didn't have a mortgage to pay and daughters and a wife to support, I would do that, because nothing rips my heart out more than seeing somebody who's been wrongly imprisoned. But those are not the cases we're talking about. We're talking about a case where you have things on video. You have people that, you see a video of somebody pushing somebody into the subway tracks. You know that they did it, but instead of looking at the seriousness of the crime, we're looking at, will he come back? Okay, 50, 60% of them will come back. But the point is, here's the point. Do we know they're going to come back? We don't know that until the next court date, and to see if they come back or not. But we're letting them go on the belief that they're going to come back. So we don't know whether they're going to come back until later. But the seriousness of the crime, we know now. There was this lady, Tiffany Harris. She beat up 3 Orthodox Jewish women. She was let go. No bail.
Maybe the judge found that they were deserving of
right, I'm sure.
And
the next day she did it again. And the next day she did it again. So
the same 3 women or somebody else?
Different women. No, she wanted to expand her territory. So
there's an equal opportunity.
Right. So that was the second argument. And the third argument about abolishing cash bail, this, it discriminates against the blacks that don't have high-paying jobs, is, well, if we let them stay out of jail, they will be able to continue their daily job and support their family. Right. So my question is, what percentage of that population was actively employed and actively supporting their family? Now, if you tell me...
Are there any statistics on that?
I haven't seen it. But wouldn't that be an important statistic to look at? Because that's one of the arguments that they used for bail reform. Yeah. Now, I get it. Somebody who's a minor drug charge, and really he is a hardworking member of society. He does have a family to support. I get it. I don't have a problem. Look, I showed you the list. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages long. Aggravated assault, reckless assault of a child by a daycare provider. You hire a daycare provider to take care of your child and they beat the crud out of your kid. Reckless assault of a child by a daycare provider, no bail. Vehicular assault, aggravated assault.
You mean when you say no bail, they let her out without
cash bail.
without the assurance that she's going to come back. Bail is what is imposed to ensure that they'll return.
Right. But here's the point. In the old days, if the crime was so violent, they imposed either no bail, remand, or a bail that they knew could not be met. And now that analysis doesn't even start. For all of these crimes, third-degree arson as a hate crime, you could burn down a synagogue. Perjury. Okay, I don't know. People care about that.
A synagogue, how about if you burn down a church?
Church too.
Or a mosque.
Tampering with a church. Aggravated harassment as a hate crime. This is 6 pages long, and there's got to be 30
Look, I don't
crimes on
David,
each one.
I don't know if you remember, or if you're old enough to know, that Dukakis, who was the
Democratic nominee
for president, released the prisoner. I don't know what his motive was, what his reason for releasing that prisoner, but while he was out for that short period of time, he killed somebody.
Yeah.
That buried Dukakis' campaign. But I'll tell you that the leadership and the approach is so inept and so stupid and so. For example, I'll show you how stupid it is. You say they give tickets to the, what do you call it, right?
That's in the Yankees, That's supposed to bring them
back to court. And they give it for the day that they're supposed to be back in court. So they obviously can't come because they tell the judge they were at the Yankees.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. I don't know if it's for the day they're supposed to be in court, but that would be pretty New Yorkish, wouldn't it? That would be pretty New Yorkish.
You got to reward the guy. So on that day, he doesn't have to come.
I tell you, I give, where I stand politically, but I actually give Mayor Adams credit. He's had it up to here with the no cash bail. And
well, he comes out of the police force.
Yeah, he's been pushing Kathy Hochul. He's been pushing up in Albany. He's gone on record saying it's a disaster. He's been pushing the Biden administration on the migrant issue. So I give Adams, he's a Democrat, I'm a Republican, but I give him a lot of credit. I think he's doing a good job in that regard in terms of trying to bring this issue to the forefront. But again, it is a completely separate issue from what's going on in the prison system, and there is very little rehabilitation. I have been in prison many times, not as an inmate.
What did you commit?
I impersonated you. I told people I was Morty Davis.
I'll testify against you.
Yeah.
You got a hell of a lot of nerve. Well, I don't know if you should get a life sentence, or they should actually give you an electric chair or whatever they use.
I impersonated Morty, but I didn't have the red tie, so they knew. So I've seen it, and again, when I was a municipal prosecutor, we were also, the firm I was working with was also doing criminal defense. So I've been in the jails. I've seen what goes on there. I've spoken to clients. There's very little rehabilitation.
We had a caller ask, how can we balance the need for strict law and order with the use of deadly force, which may be used by police to achieve it? What can we learn from Tyre Nichols in Memphis and other police violence cases like George Floyd?
That's a great question. And there's two approaches. Approach number one is stop fanning the flames. The first thing the liberals did, and I'm talking about the liberal talk show host and some of the members of Congress, is blame it on white supremacy. Now, the fact that there were 5 African American cops that did this horrific, what appears to be a horrific beating, because I saw the video, and I really could not make heads or tail out of the video.
And you don't think those 5 guys were white supremacists?
They were African American.
I know.
So I don't think they were white supremacists.
You can't be a white supremacist.
You could, but let's at least talk to them first and find out what their philosophy was, because maybe they are. Maybe they are. You know,
how many members of the Ku Klux Klan were black?
Look, there's Jews for Jesus, so it's possible for somebody to believe in something totally antithetical to who they are. But before you say they're white supremacists, let's talk to them. Maybe they have social issues themselves. Maybe they're on ego trips. Maybe they're guilty black men. I don't know. But to respond right away, I mean, there was a pizza shop in San Francisco yesterday, and thankfully the guy got fired. But there was a guy there, 3 cops walked in to get pizza for lunch, and the guy behind the counter refused to serve them. And said cops are not welcome here.
Was he an African American?
No,
a white guy?
No. I believe he was a white guy. And thankfully, the owners of the store fired the guy right away.
Oh yeah.
But 3 cops, and it was
the owner was pissed off. Was pissed off because he could have sold three pies and he lost the income.
I don't know. When I see a cop, I buy them donuts and coffee.
You what?
I buy them donuts and coffee.
Yeah.
They refuse to take it, but I said, look, buddy, I was just the other day at Dunkin' Donuts. I said, look, you don't have to take it. I'm leaving. I'm paid for it. I'm leaving it on the counter. You want the coffee? You want the donuts? It's yours.
Look, when I was growing up, and at the time I was taking lessons from my father, from some of my friends who already had a license, a driver's license, to get a driver's license. One of my friends, Joe Gittleman, was taking these lessons too, and while he was taking a lesson, he lost control of the car, and he he decimated a police car.
Ouch.
And the 2 cops that were supposed to be in that police car were in a coffee shop, a diner, and they came out and they asked him for his license, And he says, no, I just have this. I just have a driver's permit. They tore up his driver's permit. They said, you're never going to get a license in the...
Start from scratch, right.
In the New York State. So he now lives in Detroit.
I hear you. Where you don't need a license. Okay,
we're going to take a quick break now. Okay, we had our coffee break, and I had time to tell the Rabbi David Seidemann, the rabbi lawyer, a joke. And
a clean joke.
It was clean, yeah, really clean. The other one I think I told last week was along the same line about a cop. The guy's driving along and a cop stops him. I don't know if I told you this. Cop stops him. Says, do you realize your wife fell out of the car 10 miles back? He says, oh, thank God. I thought I was going deaf.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is a question I want to ask you and ask the audience. Are there victimless crimes for which people are now being prosecuted and incarcerated, but for which they perhaps shouldn't be? Yeah. And those are the three. These are the three that I'm talking about: gambling, recreational drugs, and prostitution. Now, in fairness, this was a question I dealt with in a book I'm writing now, but the laws have changed so dramatically since I started to write this book, because now narcotic, or at least what do you call it, is approved in many states.
Right.
Marijuana, it's still not cocaine or the other serious drugs, dangerous drugs, fatal drugs. Gambling has been approved throughout the country. I don't know if that's really such a blessing.
No, but there's
prostitution should be legalized a long time ago, because, sadly, there are young people and older men that have no way of satisfying this.
Get a girlfriend. Okay, let me.
What is it? This drive or this inclination, and so there. I used to see them on the West Side. They had these truck drivers driving. It was a depressed area on the West Side of Manhattan. And these prostitutes hung out there, and they were given the truck drivers one after the other, all kind of sex.
Right. I get it.
And so it was so terrible they'd given a disease, when in fact, if you had legalized prostitution, they could insist that the women that choose that profession, or whatever you call it, that behavior, that they get every 2 weeks they get examined medically, that they, so they don't spread all kinds of diseases.
All right, so let me say this. It's a little bit outdated, because under the new bail reform law, all prostitution offenses and all gambling offenses are now no cash bail.
I'm not talking about bail.
No. I'm talking about... now your question is, assuming they're found guilty, they should be incarcerated. So, I would say the following. I think that the jails are overcrowded. I think that prostitution, recreational drugs, and gambling are not our biggest problems. I think violent crime is. So, the only way I think that prostitution, recreational drugs, and gambling should be subject to incarceration is if they become victim crimes, not non-victimless crimes. Meaning, if you're a person who lures a young girl into prostitution, then I think that, I'm not talking about the prostitute, but that person should...
Yeah, I agree with that.
Right.
But I'm saying...
And the same thing with gambling, and the same thing with drugs. If you are a drug pusher...
Yeah, but I'm saying the prostitutes themselves...
I agree with you. That's not... I don't think jail is the place for them, and I don't think the jail is
there's a better way to handle it.
Yes, 100%.
Because there are people in need, and they got no alternative.
Correct.
So they go
and the
to
prostitutes
the
themselves. The prostitutes themselves are desperate people.
Yeah, often.
And again, I think that police officers, firemen, prison guards are the best of the best. But I wonder when a prostitute is sent to jail, how protected she is in jail. I wonder how many people take advantage of her in jail, knowing that she's a prostitute.
There's lots of information on the guards supposedly.
So I don't think that's the place for them. I think mentoring.
Maybe they keep the guards happier. So maybe
I don't know. I don't know. But what I think I think jails should be reserved for violent criminals. I think that you can take a prostitute and you can change her life. I think you can take a person who gambles and change his life. Hopefully.
At least that's a better way to spend the money.
I don't think you can take a murderer and change his life.
Look at what we spend. This is incarceration.
Incarceration. Number one in the world per 100,000 United States.
We're number one in the world.
Yep.
We're the richest country. You'd think that we'd have the lowest because we take care and we have all kind of safety programs and subsidies for poor people. So we have, out of 100,000, we have 639 people that are incarcerated. The ones that are in our league, not even equal to us, but are the most backward countries: El Salvador, Rwanda, Russia, not surprisingly, has a lot of prisoners. But China, which has a lot, has 121 compared to our 639.
Right, but look at real numbers. The real numbers are, because people have a problem wrapping their head around percentages, but there are over 2 million people presently incarcerated in America.
How many?
2 million, and 6 million are in the prison system, meaning that they're either in prison or on probation.
My numbers say that in 2019, 1,380,000, almost 2 million.
Okay, so I said 2 million.
Oh, did you say 2 million?
I said 2 million.
You're probably right, since 2019.
Yeah, there was. Yeah,
we probably got a few more.
A few more. The weather's been rough.
1,000,004.
Right, but 6 million. When I say in the prison system, that means that they are still on probation. They haven't completed their sentence yet. They're out of jail, but they're on probation.
Right.
But 6 million people under the thumb of the government, and I don't mean that in a pejorative way, I mean that in a good way, that the government is supposedly watching. Now, there was another, I believe it's Illinois. Has a new law that when you have a no cash bail, when you're out, so they fit you with an ankle bracelet. I might have mentioned this a few weeks ago. I don't recall if I did. Maybe here or maybe in class at Turo. It was in class. They fit you with an ankle bracelet, which monitors your movements.
That's a reward, huh? You get a bracelet.
No, but get this.
Like you're getting engaged.
Get this.
Yeah.
You get a 48-hour head start. The government, the police are not allowed to come looking for you unless you're missing for 48 hours. Do you know where you can go in 48 hours? This is lunacy. Lunacy.
What, they have a monitor?
A monitor
that alerts them?
It alerts them, but you get it's like a game we used to play when we were kids.
Yeah.
Go hide, I'm going to count to 30, I'm not going to look for you. So now you get 48 hours. You know where you can go in 48 hours? You can fly to the end of the world.
You used to play hide and seek?
Hide and seek. So this is it, hide and seek.
There's a bad joke like that. I'm sorry to make fun of the Polish, but my mother was Polish, so I guess I could make fun of them. But, they're supposedly so dumb. So they're building a new house. They're breaking down a house, destroying a house to build something else on that plot. And they find like 7 kids that they determined was somewhere between 7 and 8 years old in the walls. Mm-hmm. So they do all kind of research, and they're trying to find out who perpetrated this crime. And then they discover that these 7 kids were playing hide and seek,
Yeah.
and the guy who was it went home.
Yeah.
So
He lives.
So
Right.
they stayed in the walls.
Right.
Anyway, I want to point out, and I apologize, you were absolutely right, because it says exactly what you said. The United States is the world's leader in incarceration, with 2 million people.
You know, Morty.
With 2 million people, that's exactly
You
what you
invite
said.
me here once every 12
Right.
weeks. You would think a guy with my track record.
2 million people, just like you said,
Unbelievable.
currently in the nation's prisons and jails.
Unreal.
A 500% increase over the last.
Don't say over the. I'm going to guess over the last 40 years. Correct.
You got it. Yeah. Somebody must
Unbelievable.
have rehearsed this with you.
Nobody rehearsed it.
Changes in sentencing law and policy, not changes in crime rates, explain most of this increase.
Yeah.
Wow.
We are no longer looking at the seriousness of the crime. We're looking at, will this person return? And guess what?
These trends have resulted in prison overcrowding and fiscal burdens on states
Yep.
to accommodate a rapidly expanding penal system, despite increasing evidence that large-scale incarceration is not an effective means of achieving public safety. You know what state expenditures were for 2019? They were $6.7 billion. In 1985, $6.7 billion. In 2019, $56.6 billion, almost $57 billion.
Yeah.
And that's a
Yeah.
a great burden for the states and for the country, and with no beneficial results that we can determine.
And there's another level to this entire analysis. The amount of revenue, of tax revenue, that New York loses when people move out of New York because they don't feel safe here.
Yeah.
New York is the number one state of people that are, percentage-wise, of people that are migrating out of the state. Businesses, families.
I thought they were leaving because of the high taxes.
It's crime. It's crime and taxes.
Really?
Florida is opening up the floodgates, and New York is the number one.
You think Florida has less crime rate than New York?
Absolutely. Florida has some of the most liberal, and they say that in parentheses, laws that allow people to protect their property, the castle doctrine, right? Somebody comes into your house, somebody comes into your property and is threatening you. Less questions asked in Florida.
They have an even more, what do you call it, aggressive law that killed that young black. What they say, if you suspect, or if you, even if you
right.
So
right. In New York,
so that guy got off for killing a young black years ago.
Yeah.
I forget his name.
And that's why Florida is hopping in population. It's
Yeah,
popping.
but I don't know if they have a lower crime rate than New York. New York doesn't have such a high crime rate. We get a lot of a lot of publicity.
The amount of felonies, I think it was
Len, could you look
69.
that up?
I have it here. I have it
No,
here.
but compared to Florida.
Oh, compared to Florida. Oh, I can tell you what's happened since there's 3 or 4 cities. I know Rochester's one of them, Albany,
Chicago,
another.
Chicago.
I'm just talking about in New York, where since bail, no cash bail. It's Rochester, for instance, is suffering their worst murder rate in the history of the city. The history of the city. The deadliest year on record with no end in bloodshed in sight. And look, and it's mostly across the country in the Democrat-run cities. Philadelphia, Seattle, Chicago. It's unbelievable. So California, Illinois, and there's one other state, California and New Jersey, have also no cash bail, but they give the judges some discretion. New York has taken away all of the discretion.
I'll give you another number that's interesting. The population under control of the U.S. correction system.
Right. It's about 6 million.
3,540,000.
Oh, yeah? Is that the most recent number? I thought it was closer to 6 million.
Includes the 2 million in prison.
Right.
And probation. Oh, maybe probation. Just probation is 3,540,000. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's 6 million in total. Look, what has to happen to change?
Parole, probation, jail.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Public opinion has turned against no cash bail. The New York Post had an article.
56% of all state crime is violent crime.
Yeah.
14% is drug.
I'm more concerned with the violent crime.
16% is property. 12% is public order. And the ones you're involved in, 0.6%.
66% of New Yorkers. You listening, Morty?
Yeah, 56%.
66% of all New Yorkers, 66, which includes Democrats and Republicans and Independents, have gone on record saying that crime has gotten worse since the no cash bail.
That may be
66%.
It doesn't matter what people say. What's the actual number?
Well, the actual numbers we know. The actual numbers we know.
No, what as compared to other states.
Okay, I can't compare to other states because I don't have those statistics. I can.
Could you look that up?
I did have the statistics of what's gone up in New York. But it's basically 2 assembly members in Albany, the Senate Majority Leader and the Assembly Speaker, that have been reluctant to make any changes. Like I said, Mayor Adams has been pushing, but the 2 people that really are holding it up are the Senate Majority Leader, Democrat from Yonkers, and the Assembly Speaker, Andrea Stewart Cousins. I don't know. He's the Democrat from the Bronx, I think.
For sure he is.
Yeah. Now.
No, but it's interesting. Adams is an African American,
but he comes from a strong police background.
Strong law and all
now,
that.
Do you guys remember the Waukesha, Wisconsin killing? What was it? Last Christmas?
No.
Darrell Brooks drove through the Christmas parade and he killed 6 people and he injured more than 60 people. Terrible crime. Terrible crime. Do you know that just before this, he was arrested for punching the mother of his child in the face and running her over with a car, and he was released. Punched her in the face, ran her over with a car, and he was released.
Maybe it was just an accident.
Yeah, right. And guess what else? He had a rap sheet this long, obstructing an officer, domestic abuse, rape, over a 20-year criminal career.
Why did the judge release him?
No cash bail. And within days, and within days after running over his child's mother with a car, he plows into the parade. So we're living in a society where the victim is not the victim of the crime, the victim is the perpetrator of the crime. And that goes back into the whole question that you and I...
You're not saying that. You're saying that the courts, the justice system treats him as the victim.
But he's the victim. He's the victim. He didn't have the opportunities. Institutional racism.
Look, that's my issue with the death penalty. You know, the death penalty where somebody's found absolutely unequivocally guilty of this. They saw him. They have witnesses. You
can have it on videotape these days.
Yeah, and then what was the point I was going to make? Unequivocally, and horrible rape. Somebody came in and raped the young girl.
Dismembers the bodies.
Yeah, and they say they can't give them the death penalty these days. You know why? Because when they inject him, it's cruel and unusual punishment.
But decapitating somebody is not.
Because he doesn't die right away because
Right.
he's suffering, writhing maybe for an hour. It happened to me in my dentist chair.
Right, yeah.
And I, I keep going back to the same dentist, but this guy as a murderer, a killer.
Right.
To me, they can't do anything bad enough because
Right.
the person or persons he killed
They also suffer.
will never ever see the sun. Will never enjoy a meal. Will never interact with friends. Will never play they're playing basketball in the prison yard.
Right.
Well, how can you? The only thing I would be in favor of is, I don't know if you see the old movies, but they had chain gangs.
Yeah.
Where they really treated them. So I'd keep them alive in chain gangs and make them. I really do want retribution.
There was a case in Missouri a few weeks ago where a prisoner was he had raped and murdered somebody, and he was on death row, and it was a gentleman, and now his lawyers are arguing that he's now a woman. He became a transgender woman, and now they're claiming that he can't be executed because he's no longer the he. I'm not kidding you. This was in the paper. It was in Missouri, I believe.
That's right.
That he's no longer the
They can't
person
They can't
who
kill
did
a
the
woman.
murder.
Yeah.
No, not because they can't kill a woman.
It's not the same person.
Because it's not the same person. I'm gonna go rob a bank.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get $10 million, and I'm gonna turn myself into the cops so I don't have to waste my breath running away.
And you'll have a sex change.
And I'll have a change. I'll put on my wife's shaitel, my wife's wig, her high heels, and I'm gonna say, "Oh no, I'm Davida. I'm not David. I'm Davida.
I'm not the guy who committed the crime.
I'm not the guy who committed the crime." And that's going to be my defense. That's going to be my defense.
I think that's a good plan.
Yeah. We, look, there are so many problems here.
You obviously have a great criminal crime. I mean, mind.
I have a tremendous criminal mind. And, what I would like to, because we're wrapping up the hour, and this was a great discussion, I would love to come back and talk to you about the if it interests you, two things: the polarization of the Jewish community in Israel, and our interaction with the Arab community there, and what's the response to the this horrific killing last Friday night in the synagogue in Jerusalem, and how Israel keeps losing the war of public relations.
Yeah,
that we just lose the war of public relations.
And Bibi Netanyahu gets the worst.
And he's the best we got now. He's
done a good job.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's committed a crime or not.
No. I'm in terms of taking a strong stance. And now they're talking about, and again, totally for a different topic, but really relaxing the gun permit laws in Israel. There's 17,000 pending applications for gun permits in Israel.
I thought everybody in Israel has a gun.
No.
They all serve in the...
Yeah.
Everybody serves in the army.
Yeah.
Florida has a higher rate than New York of crime.
Okay, but
right?
I
a little bit higher.
Right, but I want to know that.
So,
I want to know the percentages.
How stupid the guys running down there.
No, I'll tell you why that's.
Crime.
No, it's an. I'm going to tell you.
What?
It's not by city. It's by state.
Right. It's not by city. It's by state. So you might have one pocket out there where you have one guy who's robbing the three local grocery stores.
Compare Miami to New York City.
And did that say violent? Yeah. Okay, violent crime. And again, it depends. The numbers can be skewed. You have to look at where it's happening. Is it happening in the inner city? Is it happening out in rural places? The bottom line is your business dries up in Midtown Manhattan when there's constantly. We just saw the other day how many different stores are going out. They just can't afford the insurance. They can't afford the insurance anymore for the smash and grabs. The rent and the smash and grabs.
You're working for the landlord.
Yeah.
On Fifth Avenue they pay you like $50,000 a month or more, $100,000 a month for rent.
Morty, I didn't realize we were also on video. We're pretty handsome. We're pretty handsome crew.
You're the handsome guy. That's why we invited you back.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Time for dinner.
Anyway, thank you. We're still on, right? So I could say thank you for our wonderful listeners. I hope you enjoyed this discussion, debate, whatever we did, whatever you define it as, but I enjoyed it. So come back next week. We'll have another exciting debate or discussion. And I love you all. I hope you have a great day, a great every day of your life. Each day should be better than the prior day.
Thank you for having me, Morty. I appreciate it.
God bless.